budget workshop to order. We will start with the opportunity for public comment. Issues or concerns not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district number, and limit their remarks to less than 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience today who would like to come forward and make public comment?
Good morning, Diane Bays. I recognize that my agenda item is on the agenda, but I am unsure whether I will be called to be able to talk about my budget, so I'm asking that permission
Yes,
now.
everyone will be able
Thank you.
to, if they choose. With that, or any other public comment? Seeing none, we will move into the workshop itinerary. A is discussion of matters regarding the fiscal year 2022 and 2023 budget preparation, including but not limited to 1, other enterprise funds, revenue and expenditures, and presentation will be made by Finance Director Tina Dersky.
Thank you, Mayor. Tina Dersky, Director of Finance. Today we'll be going over our other major operating funds, which include all of Public Works, the Development Corporation, the Hotel Tax Fund, the airport, and civic events. We are projecting hotel tax revenue this year flat with what we are currently projecting for FY22 at over $2.6 million. And the way that is proposed to be allocated for this next fiscal year is shown on this next slide. $50,000 to the sports complex, just over $1 million to civic events, $50,000 to Fort Concho, the Museum of Fine Arts, $37,500 to downtown San Angelo, $75,000 to the Cultural Affairs Council, $890,000 to the Destination Marketing Organization, and $50,000 to the Performing Arts Center. That $890,000 is 3 months at the current contract rate, and proposed at $865 for the fiscal year 2023 budget. So their fiscal year is on a calendar year, so the timing makes the actual budgeted portion a little different from what the contract would state.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you push that back? I just wanted to ask, on the $965,000 for the Destination Marketing Organization, what is that exactly?
That is what was formerly known as the CVB, the Convention and Visitors Bureau under the Chamber of Commerce. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, that's what that is. It is fully supported by hot tax dollars.
All right, what I want to do is start with all of the individuals here who are part of the smaller dollar amounts and let them come forward and speak to the projected dollar amount. So we'll start with Carl White, if you want to come forward and talk about the $50,000 for the Texas Bank Sports Complex.
Yes, this $50,000 is part of the revenue, the overall revenue that the sports complex gets for operations in all the tournaments. A bigger portion comes from the general fund. This is like a supplementary fund.
So those funds are used for what specifically?
It goes all into the revenue that's used for operations.
You don't have it designated as this goes to water, this goes to whatever.
No.
Operations, including the recruiting that happens for tournaments and so forth. So that overall budget.
Okay. Questions for Carl? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one, civic events. Oh, wait.
Also
no,
Carl.
Sorry, Fort Concho. Is anyone from Fort Concho here? I think that's you, Carl.
It's the same situation for Fort Concho. It's part of the revenue sources that go into operations for the fort.
Okay. And we have Downtown San Angelo, Inc. Is Dell still here? No. And not at the moment. Then we go into San Angelo Cultural Affairs Council. Jamie, I think you're here.
Good morning. Jamie Highsmith, Executive Director of the Cultural Affairs Council. We are pleased to receive the allotment that we get from the city, and all of that money goes to our sub-grant program, where any arts organization or arts project can apply to us for funding, and that's reviewed by our board, and that entire amount, $75,000, is then distributed to those entities who are selected. We've not turned anybody away that's applied in the time that I've been executive director. Any questions?
And you've had some new ones apply.
Yes, we have had.
I
Great.
just had a question, Mayor.
Yes, go
I
ahead,
just want
Lisa.
to know, what kind of entities are we talking about? Who have you approved?
We have core grants, and we also have project grants. Our core grant recipients have been the Symphony, San Angelo Ballet San Angelo, Civic Theater, and San Angelo Broadway Academy. Before the museum had its own category, the museum was part of our core grant process. And then art project grants. The San Angelo State Supported Living Center has an art program for residents, and they create art and take it on display to various locations. They've received a project grant. We have also Fort Concho, the Christmas music that is of the era has received a project grant. These are certainly smaller grants than our core grants, and we did give away 9 of those last year, along with four core grants, 9 project grants. And I think we have some detail that will be presented in writing about that.
Yes, ma'am, I was going to mention that, Mayor. Jamie has already sent me all of the information on where they submitted those funds and who was granted. That will be coming to City Council within the next week or so.
But I think most of those people, or I know I have received letters from those organizations thanking for the support of City Council for
Yes,
those
ma'am.
dollars. So they've been very good at writing the letters and thanking the City Council for allowing you all to have the money to give in grants.
We appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Keep it up.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
Jamie mentioned the museum. We did skip over that on the list if you want to.
I'll do it next.
Okay.
I promised Howard I would because he has someplace to go. And so thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Howard, you're up. You've never been.
Mayor, we have a parking problem.
You don't know how, Howard, come on.
My words are so heavy, it just seems like I'm talking a long time. Actually, I am. Very briefly, there are about 20,000 art museums in the world. This is a book that you can be purchased anywhere in the world, and it features 50 of the best museums in the world. And I want you to see that San Angelo is the center spread. And the relevance of that to the HUD funding is that alone helps drive visitation to the museum from around the world. I had a very curious visit not too long ago from the Finnish ambassador to the Republic of China, who took a vacation from China and came to San Angelo to see the museum. I think, Mayor, you know that right now we have an exhibition in Washington, D.C., in the residence of the European ambassador to the United States, and 25 of the ambassadors from around the world see that exhibit routinely. And we see people coming because of that. The HUD funding, one of the critical things is to help drive heads and beds. And since I'm with an art museum, I believe in tangible objects that you can see and, well, not touch, but you can see them. And so I brought some of the publications that we run advertising in, full-page ads. I won't open them all up. You can see.
Speaking of the ceramics, how was the most current ceramic exhibit?
It was wonderful. We have 120 artists from, I think it's 38 states on exhibition, plus Canada. At the opening, our opening was down a little from pre-COVID, but at that opening, we had over 500 people, and that's astonishing. And by the way, our attendance this past year is hitting about 65,000. Pre-COVID, it was 85,000, and we're heading back up happily, but that's a lot of folks, believe me. And then plein air, I think people have really come to know what that is, and already this plein air competition is considered about the 3rd largest in America, and there are over 200. The 2 that are bigger than us, and this is the unbelievable fact, are in metropolitan areas of about miles around of over 50 million people. One is in Southern California and the other on the East Coast. And in our region, 200 miles, there's about 200,000 people. So it's really remarkable that it's that successful in that short period. Well, you get the idea, I hope. The one thing that you're probably not picking up on, and this one, hey, I'll just bring to the podium and just let you guys circulate it, look at it, keep it. But we do very extensive marketing and advertising. It costs more than the cost of the hot funding that we receive, and it's done nationally in these important publications. And it really does. We have a pretty, I think, effective method of estimating room nights, and it's over 2,000 a year. And it's a very complicated formula about how we determine that, but we collect zip codes from our attendees. We have a lot of large public events, and so there we can only do estimates, but we sort of try to underestimate what the impact of that would be because we drive attendance through this kind of marketing. And so if I may, I'll just bring this up to the podium. And there's a full-page ad in here by the museum, but also there is about a 5-page section about all of San Angelo and the cultural attractions of the community. And so not only when we run these ads, and it costs a lot of money, we really make an effort to encourage the publications to take a look at the broader community.
How many people come to the museum on an annual basis?
This past year, we're hitting about 65,000. Pre-COVID, it was 85,000, but it's going back up very rapidly. We still are hesitating to do certain large public events. Our Saturday family days, which draw often as many as 1,000 people. We're not going back to those live. One little thing I will say, because I think we know that the hot funding is about heads and beds, but there's also an element of community service. We are open to the community for public visitation 6 days a week, and we're working and operating 7 days a week with programs. We do. We're also a performing arts center. You may not think of us that way, but we do chamber music concerts, big band dances that are very popular here in the community. We allow over 100 groups each year to meet at the museum free of charge. And in fact, even City Council has met there on a couple of occasions in the past, and you're always welcome at the museum if there's a need. So that's a really important part, but the one little thing I want to point out that we have done related to COVID is because the very intensive interactive children's programming, we have created a program now of take-home packets for families, and they're very family-oriented. And they're expensive, very expensive, because they have real art materials in them, instructions, lessons, and we hand them out free, and it costs us an average of about $7 per packet, and we've handed out over 15,000 of those already.
How's that paid for?
Well, not through this funding, because that goes pretty much devoted to this, but we get very extensive grants. And one thing, kind of a point of pride, but if you look at the Texas Commission on the Arts, which gives to arts organizations across the state, in our region, 4 other art museums combined received less than half of the funding that the museum in San Angelo did. And that's not because they're just handing that money out. We work very, very hard and present the programs that we do, the quality of the programs, and that's what results in that money coming into the community. Our budget now is over $2 million, and more than $1 million comes from outside of San Angelo into the economy, primarily through grants that we receive. So as a matter of fact, as soon as I'm out of here, I'm back to working on a grant today, and you know, it's just a part of our lifestyle there. But very
Everyone
important.
has heard the rumor about you leaving and no longer function in the same role that you're in today. You want to talk about that today?
Oh, it'll be a big celebration, yes, when I leave. You're all invited. Well, yes, I've been here 38 years. I arrived in 1984. I had my first air travel experience to San Angelo, and I was a day and a half late, and I arrived at 2 a.m. Flying here was a little different back then. You know, you didn't actually land, you used a parachute, but I made it into San Angelo. And I'm not going to leave exactly, but my successor has been hired. I probably shouldn't be announcing it, but I will. His name is Alex Freeman. He is currently the director of the Texas Association of Museums, very brilliant young guy. I'm very excited that he's coming here. He'll be on the scene in September. He'll be taking over officially in January, and then I'm going to continue in a role of fundraising for the museum for at least the next year, because we have a lot of very important capital projects and some that we're actually collaborating on with the city. For example, at the state office building, we're working on a very substantial state-of-the-art collections facility that we're going to share with Fort Concho, and the fort won't have to raise a penny of that money because we're working on doing that. To build out that facility, it's going to be a very expensive project, but we're well into it. So yes, I'll still be around. My heart is very much here in San Angelo. When I came here 38 years ago as a Yankee, they thought, well, he won't be around long, and I discovered you can't get out of here. You know, there's no way. I looked, you know, and at least on my map. So very devoted to this great, wonderful community, and will continue as much as possible in the future. So,
Questions for Howard?
thank you one and all, and for all that you do for our community. I'll share this with you.
Thank you. San Angelo Performing Arts Center.
Good morning, I'm Yuki Kuniuki, the Executive Director for SAPAC, and it's really, we benefit greatly from having the hotel occupancy tax. Last season, which goes from July to June, we had 80 shows in our performing arts venues, which is tremendous when you consider coming out of the pandemic. The years prior, we had averaged about 65, and we've made a concerted effort to reach a broader audience in the past season and going into our new season, to extend, you know, north to Abilene, west to Ozona, Sonora, and even down to San Antonio, because we realize a lot of the shows that we do offer here are only accessible in San Angelo for those communities. And so we've done a lot of promotion outside of San Angelo to help bring in heads to beds and attract a lot more people to our great city. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I just want to make one comment. I know that you report to us every year of the finances for SAPAC, and I want to congratulate you on this most recent one that you provided us, because there's black ink at the bottom of the page, and I know that took a lot of work and effort, and certainly a lot of grant money that came in because of the COVID thing, but you're an important part of this community, and the ability to stay alive and stay with your doors open and have some black ink, even if it's a little amount, is very positive and very encouraging for that facility.
Yeah, we were really benefited from the Small Business Association's Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, which was to help support performing arts centers through COVID, because they anticipated a decrease in attendances and shows coming through different states. We still haven't returned to pre-COVID numbers yet, but it's been really helpful to us, and hot tax is really beneficial as well to ensure that we keep our doors open, and we have a lot of great shows coming this year. So I hope to see more folks attend our wonderful season and make use of our great facilities too. And I invite the council members to come by anytime and get a tour of our facilities if you haven't been there.
Questions for Kookie? Seeing none, thank you very much. Sydney, you're on. Carl or Sydney, or who's going on? Sydney, I think they just pointed a finger at you. You're on.
I'm ready. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. Sydney Walker, Civic Events Manager, here to discuss our facility improvement projects. Of course, we've been doing, can I get the? So we've been doing our facility improvement projects since 2016, and we've been able to accomplish a lot of different things for several of our venues and stuff. Of course, for Foster Communications Coliseum, since then we've done the LED lighting, new staging, ceiling tile replacements. We've also fixed the lower ring roof, new spotlights, chiller, climate control. Also for the McNeese Convention Center, we've done LED lighting, the marquee signage that's outside as well, soundboard replacement, and the new staging. Next. For the River Stage, we have completed the restrooms, concession stand, ticket booth renovations, drainage repair, new chairs for there, and then for Farmers Market, the parking lot seal coating and striping. For the Paseo, LED lighting, protective netting, parking lot seal coating and striping. So throughout fiscal year from 2016 to now, we've spent approximately about $1 million in improvements and stuff, and that came through you all for council. And so this year, we have some other issues that we're trying to complete, and I would like to bring that forward to you all. So the last remodel that we had here for the McNeese Convention Center was in 2008. And in 2008, they just did a lot of different remodels, but they did not take care of the sewer line. We've been having sewer line issues before I was even the events manager. I look back at it, there was some issues back in 14 as well. Issues started occurring for me in 16. So back then we did have a sleeve put into our sewer line, and that was just a temporary fix for us at the time. But that sleeve right now is, there's some damage to the sleeve and there's some sinking going on with our sewer line, so we're needing to get that fixed. We've had multiple sewer malfunctions in this past year, and we've contacted the plumber within 15 times of this year. Some of them are to take precaution, because when we do have events that are more than 300 or 350 people that are involved in it, we have had to call them out so they can make sure we don't have no issues during an event. So for the convention center, we're looking to ask for $800,000. I plan to bring this to council in the second city council meeting in August, and that's going to be for the sewer line replacement, tile and carpet replacement, wall vinyl replacement. That's also in the main ballroom and in the main halls, carpet replacement for the hallways, window tinting, LED lighting for the hallways, speaker replacement, irrigation and tree planting, seal coating, and security cameras.
Did you
And
just
that's for
rebuild
her.
this center? Because it sounds like you just rebuilt McNeese Convention Center.
I would like to expand it, but.
We would too. Teresa
And
can-
speaking of, so future needs, that list did not include the HVAC. We do have a lot of HVAC issues as well. Approximately, that's going to cost about $300,000 just in itself too, as well, to fix any of the, to replace all the HVAC needs here. And in the future needs of looking forward to possibly doing some type of expansion. Of course, we have a lot of, we're trying to compete with other venues as well for conferences, conventions, and you know, for us, we really have a problem with breakout rooms as well, and then the size of the ballroom too. So I know it's a pretty tough thing for, for us to bring in the convention, so I would like to hopefully look in the next few years of discussing about some type of expansion for us.
Teresa, on the $800,000 to fix the sewer system, tile, carpet, are hot tax dollars available to do that?
We have a funding plan to present to you. Sid has it for one of his slides later on in the presentation.
So also, we also have for the Coliseum, is that next?
Go ahead.
So for the Coliseum, we have a boiler that actually went down as well. So the Coliseum and Spur Arena, we actually share two boilers over there. They've been there since 1999. One of the boiler units actually went down in February, and we're needing to get that replaced. And we
Thought
cannot.
we replaced it already. No?
No, ma'am. So we replaced the chiller.
Oh, the chiller.
Yes, ma'am. And yeah. So we cannot operate both areas consistently without both units working. So we're in need of that boiler, to be at the Coliseum, so we can operate fully between the Coliseum and Spur Arena. So for the two boiler units, we're approximately looking at $258,000. I'm gonna explain this. So we're only needing one boiler at the time right now, but we're also looking at the fact of going ahead and replacing the second boiler too as well. That way we don't run into that issue in the future sooner. So it would be a cheaper amount to go ahead and just get both boilers replaced at the time. So if we did replace both boiler units, it would be approximately $258,000. Of course, we would bring that to council in August. November, the product would arrive and it would be installed in January. If we did just replace one boiler, we're looking at approximately about $136,000.
The other one is of equal age and is probably
Okay, keep going.
So our funding sources is for hot tax fund, there's $1.6 million. Civic events fund, right now we have a little bit over $1 million. And then our restricted facility use fees, we have $353,000. And that's the fund balance of June 30th.
And so recap for me with those dollars cover the issues you just reviewed, right?
Yes, ma'am. So what we're looking at is for the Foster Communications Coliseum, for the boiler issue, we're planning to just have we would like to have the $300,000 taken from just the hot funds, and then for the McNeese Convention Center, we're needing a total of $800,000, and we're planning to use all of our facility use fees of $350,000, and then also take from our civic events fund balance of $450,000.
Does it leave your civic events fund balance in the right dollar amount so
Yes,
it's available
Yes, ma'am.
without creating a problem with fund balance? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, questions for Sydney? You know, one of the things we asked him to do this go around was to present the issues as it relates to the facilities, because there's no reason for us to talk about hot tax dollars and not talk about the issues that are out there. And they seem to be numerous at this point. So I would assume someone's got some questions on these dollars. Tom?
Well, so I'll going back to what I'm a little bit familiar with the new boilers. Are they, I know historically y'all have done some cross-financing between the association and the Coliseum.
Yes, sir. We are in discussions right now with Stock Show to be able to put in at least half for the amount. Right now, I'm currently waiting to see if they want to replace the 2 boilers instead of just the 1.
I cap what they did with the chiller that you recently did. What the stock should do.
With the chiller, they went half with us as well too. So they have been going half on certain items for us and stuff too as well. So I believe this won't be an issue, but I think they need to bring it before their board to see if they'll be able to fund both chillers. Both boilers, sorry.
We've done the chiller, right?
The boiler.
Right, but now we're on to the boiler.
Boiler, yes, sir.
That's the hard part. We're hitting them back to back, which is tough.
All right, so we talked about the McNeese Convention Center and the Coliseum. What are the issues that are outstanding on our other facilities?
The River Stage could definitely use a lot of just different things, a lot of different work. From the entrance, we would like to build some type of awning over it for just the heat exposure and stuff like that for the customers to be able to come in too as well. There's some back wall improvements that we do need to make at the River Stage too as well. It's just an old wall that's the bottom has rusted out too as well. So it's been an issue for us to be able to move that as well. Both dressing rooms need some type of updating too as well. There's several issues over at the River Stage, but we've been able to get by with what we have right now and stuff. Paseo too as well. We still need to do some work still over there too. I do have some board members that have been asking about some type of awning going between the east and the west Paseo to be covered over that to make some type of area for another rentable spot for us for events. So that's something that we're discussing as well for the board. And then also the indoor arena is one of our venues that doesn't get a lot of interest, but could use a lot of work too as well, because they could use it. We did inside with the staff, they did take care of the concession stands. They rebuilt them, the staff did all that. But there are some other issues over there that we can do. LED lighting would be one of the things that's needed over there. Replacing the benches that's over at the indoor arena too as well. The restrooms that they need, they're not handicap accessible. So a lot of those issues that we do need to take care of with the indoor arena as well.
And do we have that, Rick, do we have a laundry list and dollars attached to all of that?
Not currently on those. We kind of focused on what the primary ones were that were of greater importance. I mean, Sid could kind of give you, but they focused on getting some prices on the ones that were most pressing.
Well, from what I understand, the work on the sewer and here in this facility needs to be done pretty much ASAP.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that correct? And
Yes,
so
ma'am.
you're looking at your projections for this facility to be down because you're going to have to close the entire facility to do the work.
Currently, we're looking at being closed from mid-November to mid-January.
And what events normally happen during that time period that will be impacted by that?
There were some private quinceañeras as well. I believe the chamber had one event as well. Everybody has been notified of
Generally, I
the
think they do the,
luncheon.
no, the
Banquet.
banquet, and so is the completion of this project in time for them. You have it scheduled, so you're okay on that. Okay. So that's going to impact the revenue. Yes, Lucy?
Mayor, I think Julia had something to say. Did you want to?
No, I was asked to let Rick know to please use his microphone.
I think John got that same.
I noticed she wanted to get your attention.
Remember, speaking to the microphone. That's the policy.
Teresa not do that to John earlier today, too?
Well, I'm just going to make these comments. The city has invested a lot of money into these facilities, and we need to make sure that we keep the facilities in a state that is not embarrassing to us as a city and has a more welcoming appeal to it. And I think the things that Sydney has brought forward are things that have a negative impact if we don't deal with them. We certainly know that there's a conversation out there about a new Coliseum, but at this point in time, we need to deal with what we have and the time frame that citizens will be using these facilities. So I support what you're asking for and the funding of that, but I need other city council members to voice any concerns or support or questions, please. Yes, Tom?
Sydney, on the other, under revenue, you're projecting to be down 18? Did I
Yes,
miss
sir.
that?
So most of that other revenue that's going to be projected down would be from our concession sales. Due to us doing the point of sale stations, we will have to reimburse San Angelo hosts for the point of sale stations. So I deducted that from
Who owns the point of sale? Do we own it or does Carlo own it?
Carlo would be owning it. He signed the agreement.
So if he owns
Angelo
it,
hosts.
then, and he gets the revenue from the POS system for concessions, right?
Yes, and we receive a portion. Yes, ma'am.
You receive a portion of it. So why are we reimbursing? I'm a little confused about that.
Based on the contract, Mayor, there is a reduction to the revenue that the city receives to proportionately pay back Carlo for that point of sale system, since we were the ones that required that he start using one. Is that fair, Sid?
What she said.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think the POS system's very important.
Yes,
I think
ma'am.
that's a key issue.
We're working on that right now. Have a meeting actually at 12:30 about it.
So we'll hurry up. But when is that POS system supposed to be in place?
It's already in place right now, but we're working through a few kinks with it and stuff. Of course, with the River Stage. Last year for facility improvement projects, I asked for some funding to get Wi-Fi and access points too as well for several of our venues. So we're just working through a few of the kinks that we're having with the point of sales and connecting with the Wi-Fi issues as well.
I think there was a Wi-Fi issue on one of the events and they couldn't process. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's been worked out?
That's what we're working on. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
I saw that up there, and so I know we're going down that point of sale, but I mean, point of sale is very key to anything you're doing, whether it's associated to, point of sale at that point in time.
It's real time.
When you get that many people in a room, in a facility, then there's so many people hitting the Wi-Fi, the bandwidth, it's a hose, and you only get so much out.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I would prefer those things be wired. I know what you're talking
Same
about,
here.
but consistency and making sure that thing works, nothing's more disgusting than to lose power, electricity, or Wi-Fi during the middle of a weekend and you can't get anybody to work on it.
I agree.
So that's because we Wi-Fi, not hardwire?
Yeah, I
Which is
would.
So-
And there's people smarter than me that are going to deal with that. I'm just saying, I know Suddenlink, you got your tower power down at the rodeo. A lot of the reason we have it is we could never get on with Wi-Fi. Like, we can barely scan tickets with the amount of band service, Kimberly, you can speak to that we have out there. We can barely scan tickets. I don't know how you could do point of sale without having a better plan. Just ensure me you've got a good plan going forward with that. I just want it to work.
I agree with you, because that's the issue with the river stage. We do have one area where we're able to hardwire, and we didn't have any issues technically over there, but it was all the other areas wherever Wi-Fi was needed to be able to be used, and the data was just not there for us. And so we're trying to talk with the POS, the company, and discuss some other measurements that we can possibly take to better assist for it. But we do have those issues as well. And I've also talked with San Angelo hosts, about their concerns too as well, about possibly we build, instead of having the temporary concession stand areas, let's go ahead and build permanent areas that do have the capabilities to hardwire.
Okay. Yes, Tommy?
It sounds to me, Sydney, that you are trying your best to anticipate problems before they occur. I guess a question I would have, how far down the road are you only able to look maybe 12 months down the road? Are you able to look 24, 36 months down the road to start then working on the budgeting things? Some of these things are gonna, if we don't deal with them, we're gonna have to deal with them. So how far out, just based on the constraints you operate under, are you able to begin anticipating?
Well, I try to do at least at least 2 years, 3 years out and stuff. Of course, we have our capital improvement plans. Some of the things discussed in the capital improvement plans on our measurements of how we're going to try to move forward and take care of some of the issues with our venues. So I try to keep that on there. Of course, the biggest issue for everybody would be funding. Taking care of funding. I know we did have a river stage plan to be able to do different things with the river stage, but unfortunately, when COVID struck, and then the issues that we had with the convention center that took place, that was priority for us.
We talk about, sometimes we get, in my opinion, we get caught up, get down in the weeds of things. Sometimes I think as a council, we need to pull ourselves back out of the weeds and get up at a little higher level. So I would just encourage you, to the extent you can, to begin moving a little further out down the road so that, you can start addressing some of these things before you get in a bind, and really then we do have to scramble around and find funding, or it puts you in a bind with using funding you might have been going to use for something else. So you are doing a good job, in my opinion. I would just encourage you to look as far out as you possibly can so that we can hopefully head off some of these things.
I think my next big question is the following: operating costs, because we know almost everybody today is experiencing significant operating cost increases. Have we anticipated correctly on that?
Yes, ma'am. We're working on that too as well, the operating costs. Yes, ma'am.
So where do you figure all that into this? Because
So with what we get from you all for operations and stuff, we're getting by, but we're barely get by with where we're at. Of course, the facility is pretty old for the most part, so things are breaking every now and then for us, at both facilities, for the convention center and the Coliseum. So we've really been working with finance to be able to find money to take care of some of the issues and items that we have been having, and bring that forward to you all.
Karen?
I just want to agree with Tommy's comment. And of course, a strict financial accounting doesn't point out the inevitable relationship between improvements attracting more heads and beds. And so I totally agree that the further you can get ahead of that and anticipate that, it's going to come back to fund the projects that you want and maybe even create a surplus. So for those listening, including the people in the room today, we can't see that on a budget. I hope you're having discussions with city staff about anticipation for what can happen if you are proactive.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's key, because not only is it heads and beds, But generally speaking, those heads and beds who are using the facilities because of the events that are going on there are also people who are spending money elsewhere in the city. So it's not just simply hot tax money, it is sales tax money. And right now, with the current trend on sales tax money, we need as much positive happening as possible in the sales tax column, and that means bringing visitors in, staying in our hotels, going to our events, and spending money.
Agree.
Okay. That's the end of the questions. Thank you, Sydney. And when are we going to see the rest of those projections on facility improvement?
I can probably I'm coming back to council and by August 16th to bring that to you all.
What I want us to do next year is have all of that available during the budget session.
Yeah, what he can do is prepare like that whole laundry list of things.
Yes.
And prepare even a broader list than what we did this year. Prioritize them, but keep going with what those costs are projected to be. So if y'all choose to fund further, you can.
That goes back to Tommy's comment is we're seeing a partial picture today. It's not a complete picture, and we need to see the big umbrella.
So when we do have our civic events advisory boards, we do take all of the issues with all of our venues, and then we discuss them and we prioritize them that way, and that's when we bring them to you all. So if you all would like to see that prior, I can do that.
Even if he gets that done 6 months into the year, he may even bring it to you for discussion if you like before the budget session, but certainly by the budget.
It's got to be by the budget session. I mean, that's what we're here for. It's what we're discussing. This is what we're looking at. We need to see the big picture, not just half Polaroid picture. So
I think the council's, in my opinion, we try to be helpful. So if we can know those things and we may not act on them right then, but at least we know, okay, when you come to us next year and say, yeah, he told us about that last year, so that we can say, sure, yeah, go ahead and do that. So help us see the bigger picture as well.
Will do.
thank you very much. All right, the next one is our destination marketing. Diane?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I learned about the proposed decrease while I was on vacation last Thursday, so I didn't have the opportunity to put a PowerPoint together, but I did write something, so I'd like to read that if I could. When I started my position in April 2017, the local tax receipts generated by travel spending was $6.2 million. After 1 year of our marketing efforts, those receipts increased to $6.9 million, and in 2021, they totaled $7.4 million. Those tax dollars include sales tax that go into the general fund to help pay for other city services. Our budget in 2017 was $865,000, and our current budget, including $47,000 that this council allowed us to carry over from 2021, is $1,012,000. The reserves for hotel tax dollars sit at $1.6 million, and those are designated dollars by law for the purpose of bringing visitors to town. This cut would not just be $75,000 as listed on the agenda. It would be $147,500. By cutting our budget to this number, the city will lose more than $1 million in local tax receipts in just the first year. How do I know this? In 1993, the state of Colorado was the #1 summer tourism destination in the country. The powers that be made the decision to cut the $12 million budget of the state's tourism bureau to save money for the citizens. That one-time decision cost Colorado $1 billion the first year and a total of $10 billion before they regained their market share. A large cut like this to the San Angelo Destination Marketing Organization will deeply impact our effectiveness in our efforts to promote the city to visitors. Not only will it hurt our marketing efforts, it will also impact our staffing. We have developed a very effective team who has worked hard over the past 5 years to improve the quality of life for the citizens of this city by bringing in new money into our town. 51% of the retail sales tax collected in 2021 was paid by visitors. That does not mean people didn't shop locally. It means visitors chose to shop here because of our marketing efforts. The marketing we pay through hotel tax paid by visitors has helped increase our hotel tax dollars, and by cutting it, those marketing commitments we have had in the past will not happen due to proposed significant cuts. The DMO is the only organization on this list that receives who receives hotel tax that solely markets to out-of-town visitors to overnight. Those entities that currently receive the tax that are listed on here will also be affected in the long run, as they do not do outside or very limited outside marketing. Our office has played the key role in seeking the following designations. We were named the Visual Arts Capital of Texas through 2031. We are a Texas film-friendly city. We are a Texas music-friendly city. We launched the San Angelo Revolution Film Festival. We were named Destination of the Year in the Texas Travel Awards last year. We were the #1 True Western Town in 2020 and 2022, and the #2 True Western Town in 2019 and 2021 due to our marketing efforts. I will end this as I have a question to propose to you. With all due respect to the elected officials on the dais, if marketing were not important, why didn't you choose to put your name on the ballot in order to be in the seat you now occupy, instead of paying to be on the radio, do television interviews, send out direct mail pieces, purchase yard signs and billboards and more? This cut will also affect the citizens. In 2021, the $643 per household was saved annually due to visitor spending. In 2017, which is where this budget would go back to, that number was in the low 500s. San Angelo is not a field of dreams. If you build it or renovate it, they will not come unless we ask them to. Thank you.
Do I have questions for Diane? Harry?
I guess I would ask, in your conversations with city staff, you or Walt or whoever was with the city finance or whoever, where the figure of $75,000 less came from.
I heard about it on Thursday in an email while I was on vacation.
Okay, Harry, to answer your question, 2019 City Council directed an increase from $865 to $1,012,000 for the CVB at that point in time. We were directed to bring the contract back annually for review, and so that was intended to make sure that we review those allocations annually. So this year, what's being presented is the $865, and that is up for council's evaluation and consideration. And the difference between her 147.5 is the 47.5 she was able to carry over. Additionally, we're at a different contract year from them, so there's some timing where our actual budget amount would be $890 versus $865 because we still have 3 months left of that $1 million contract. I hope that makes sense.
They're not on the same fiscal year that we are.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So the question mark is the following. So I think what you said was in 2019, the decision by this city council was that that $1 million or $1 million, whatever it was to be a 1 year, and it would be re-reviewed every year.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
next year happened to be COVID, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
so
so
the
that-
impact of 2020 and 2021 were COVID years, and the CBB actually gave back to the hot tax money $200,000 of unspent money because of COVID. Is that correct?
Yes, so 2020 was the first year of the $1,012,000 contract. Of course, March of that year, COVID hit. So in 2021, the city designated $765,000 to the DMO, including a $200,000 carryover that they were allowed to carry over for a total of a little over $965 for 2021. And then in 2022, the city designated $965 plus an additional carryover of $47.5, bringing you back to that $1,012,500 where we were starting in fiscal year 2020.
What were the sales tax increases in 2020 and 2021 the city experienced?
Overall, for the entire year, an average, we can look that up for you.
Just to
2020
her
and
point,
2021.
because in 2020 and 2021, our trend was much better than our trend is right now. Is that correct?
I'll have to look
I
at
don't
that.
know. That's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Is that correct?
I'm not sure that that's correct, but we'll look it up for you. Yes. Kimberly's working on it.
I know that our numbers are comparable right now at year-to-date to our 2021 number, or 2020 numbers. No, 2021 numbers. They're comparable year-to-date right now as far as the hotel tax collections, which will reflect also on those sales tax dollars. And if you saw that the numbers were flat, right now are projected flat, so they aren't dropping, so that is another thing to note.
Diane, talk to us while they're looking at. Talk to us what a reduction in 75,000.
147,000.
Well, but is that, you're talking the carryover, right? Not the original budgeted amount?
The original budget with the carryover was $1,012,000, which was what it was in 2020 as well.
That's correct.
Again, I do want to emphasize, though, and we did look this up, I had Julia look that up, as far as when the city council made that decision, it was on a one-year basis, and so the amount was up here as far as the $1,012,000 you're talking about. That, again, was to be reviewed on an annual basis. There was never a discussion as far as this being a permanent amount that would maintain at $1,012,000. It was going to be reviewed on a year-by-year basis as well.
And I
So,
understand that.
yeah, okay.
I understand that. What I would say, Councilman, is in 2019, I hired a communications digital marketing person, if you will, based on the fact that I had the budget coming in 2020. Decrease us now back to the numbers that we had in 2017 is going to reflect on that staff. Because when I do a budget, I like my operations to be less than what my marketing is, because my job is marketing. So I'm going to have to look at that to review staffing. I have no other option if we cut significantly like that.
But the increase was not in 2017, it was in 2019, is that correct?
The increase was in the city's fiscal year 2020 budget for the first time. So 2019 would have been the 865, but I think it started in 17 and was 865 for 17, 18, and 19.
I think the previous council members, when their other individuals were in that office, were the ones who reduced that amount down to the 865 with the provision that anything over and above that number for, let's say, a big event, they could come back to council and get that or ask for that recommended amount of money to be approved. So it was a base number with the opportunity to increase it if events that could have significant impact on this community came up.
That's always an option. Yes, ma'am.
I think one of the other issues that I've heard is the number of events that fell through for all the right reasons, COVID and everything else. For example, the Air One race never happened. There was great expectations for that. The Cowboy Jubilee that didn't happen, great expectations for that. And so the question mark is much of the funding was attached to big events, things that would impact hotel motel tax, as well as sales tax revenue within the city.
Actually, that is not necessarily accurate. That for that 1 year, we looked at that, but we had that funding in place already.
Yes, correct. But those events aren't coming back. And are there events that are out there that you're anticipating that would be something like that one could see an impact on the sales tax dollars that you talk about? And
Well,
hotel.
I
motel.
would say Wild West Fest, which is coming up, is one of those events.
That's done by an individual, right?
We worked with Thomas Hoffman on that to
The
ensure that
promotion.
it could be a 7-day event, so we could promote it, because otherwise it would have been a 1-day event. I would also add that we have 52 weekends in the year, and one weekend event will not change our sales tax that significantly. We seek out conventions and meetings and other opportunities. Majority of those meetings are held at our hotels and not at the convention center because of the proximity of the convention center to the hotel products that our visitors and our planners want to stay in.
Do we have conventions booked in 2023?
We do.
Or in the balance? You want to talk through those?
I couldn't tell you what those names are right now. I don't have that in front of me, so I don't have that list. But Jonna has been working that as well as Susanna. So we have some, in fact, coming up now. So those are in the books. I
You want
guess
to talk about those? If you girls have that information, you want to come forward?
I would just, my biggest concern, quite frankly, is pushing our budget, even if it's 100,000, sending us back to where we were 5 years ago is going to affect what advertising we can send out, including things like True West Magazine, which we understand. I understand how the game is played. You market in order to get some of those designations.
Correct.
If you want to stay in the top 10, we're likely not going to have that happen.
I can talk about some of the ones, I guess, from this year. My job has changed. I'm not doing as much of the convention meetings anymore. But we just hosted Texas Police Games a couple of weeks ago, which was pretty big for us. We had the Academy of Young Teachers that was here this past week. I know Jonna has a couple of meetings that have been here, like this past week and, coming up. We're constantly working on the sports market. I would say Air Race 1 is not totally off the books. They still want to come. We're just trying to work through the process of getting them to be able to come here, because now we actually kind of got a deal when they were going to come originally because of COVID. So they were trying to start their races here in the United States, and so they were waiving their fee, which usually is like $70,000 to $150,000. So of course now COVID's over, he's kind of wanting those type of fees again, but he really loves San Angelo, so he's still interested in coming back. So there's various things like that, and then of course we've been focusing on our media missions, getting people to write about San Angelo. A lot of our travelers are leisure, because we don't have the meeting space. We don't have the hotel product. So we are definitely working as hard as we always do. So.
I'm Jonna Gaddy. I'm Director of Sales for the DMO. And yes, we right now I do have a group here. If you see the lady outside in red, that is the Permian Basin Water Utility School. They do it every year. It's here. They will be doing it probably again next year and following, as long as we provide what they need. And so that's what we work hard to do. I also, we work with Austin, and in Austin, that's where most of the meeting planners are. And so we go there, recruit, and try to, we take them to lunch, we get them to come here, and that's one of the things too that we are trying to work on, is doing some, we bring the meeting planners here all together, show them what San Angelo has, so we would, need the budget for that too. So, and I'm working with Harry and his group coming up, so any time that anybody has an association and you need our help, we'd be glad to help you, and that's what we do. That's why we're here.
I think you do a lot of that. There are many organizations who say, my organization wants to come to San Angelo, and they ask for your all's help, and whether it's the welcoming bags or working out some of the details that they can't do or don't know to do. So I think you do a lot of that, smoothing the edges.
Yes, we do.
We're doing that currently with West Texas Legislative Summit.
Yeah.
That is coming next week.
Yes, and we do a lot of servicing too once they get here. We're right there helping them with their registration, and just because, like we said, we don't have that convention hotel that you can do it all at once and other people helping them. So we have to find other things to get them to come here, and that's what service is one of the things, once they get here, that will be help them. So.
Thank you. The other thing I think you pointed out, Diane, is 51% of the sales tax dollars come from outside this city.
Right.
And certainly we are a area that pulls from 16, 17 counties, so a lot of those people are not coming here necessarily for events, if you will. They shop here. We're a key shopping area. We are a regional shopping area. And I think you brought up at one point what percent the medical community brings to the table in terms of that revenue and
In
medical
2020,
tourism.
in 2020, it was 27%. It's normally around 18.
Of course, COVID, but it's still 18%. So a lot of people come to this city, not because of many of our attractions, but because they got to seek out medical help.
I would also encourage that we still provide marketing to them even when they're here. We have a visitor center that we provide brochures for, so visitors do come into our community and get that information so they know what there is to see and do. That would be as well part of that cut in order to be able to meet this budget.
So where would the cuts be?
I don't know. I just learned this on Thursday, so I still have to look. Some will be in operations, likely in staffing, and then the others I will have to look through our marketing efforts to see where I can make that work. It's a significant cut.
And so when we say 5 years ago, it hasn't been 5, it's just since 2019 or 2020 that we had the $1 million, refresh everybody's mind.
In the 2019 budget discussions is when council designated that it would be a one-year contract at $1,012,000, but that it would be reviewed annually. So the first year it was in our budget was 2020.
Perfect. And you have those sales tax numbers ready for us?
2020, we saw an increase of 1% in sales tax revenue, 1.05 to be exact.
Not to budget, but to LY.
Actuals.
Yeah, I don't want to budget, I need to LY.
These are actuals. 2020 year-over-year actuals, yes.
Okay, good.
2021, an increase of 6.97%. And then 2022 year-to-date, we've seen an increase of 3.1% over 2021.
And how does that compare to our regional cities?
I can just speak anecdotally to that because we do look at that on a monthly basis, and we're seeing in most of the cities around us that we put on our comp, Midland, Odessa, Abilene, Wichita Falls, seeing bigger increases on a monthly basis, at least this fiscal year. But I can't speak to that on a more long-term basis, just kind of anecdotally what we're seeing.
I would add, in regards to visitors with our regional cities, all of them have full-service hotel products that have meeting space that we do not currently have.
Yeah, but that's been true. If we look back over the past couple of years, it would be the same story. We haven't had. We need it, and hopefully we're working on something that will produce that. So,
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
This may be a crazy idea, but I'm going to toss you an idea, Diane.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a sales guy. I have lived by commissions my entire career. I have never drawn a paycheck. What if we tied going back to the million whatever to specific quantifiable performance? And that way you earn that money. If you will, you earn that money that way. Now, that may be the craziest thing, but again, I'm sitting, the world I live in is commissions. I don't know what it's like to get a regular paycheck. Is that something that would work for you?
I don't know, honestly. I've never, ever in my 30 years in this industry had this experience, so this is new. I've never had my budget cut, ever, so it's new.
Yes, Tom.
So Diane, if this was a performance-based contract, do we have is there any evidence to go down with what we've been doing?
I'm sorry?
If this was a performance-based contract and we're getting a receipt for what performance y'all are doing, is there a reason to go down on what we've been doing? I mean, we're going up every year, are we not?
We have been, but our tax dollars have gone up as well.
Right.
In that effort. So,
When I look at last year, we were just coming out of COVID. I mean,
Sure.
when we compared to last year, we had a very soft history to the year prior. So we're going against a very strong history of like nearly 7%. We're still up 3% over that. So compared to 20, we're up about 10. As we're moving forward, I learned when we have to market in a recession, and this comes from, I'm just like Mr. Hebert here. It's all based on sales.
Sure.
And when you get down to where monies are tight and things are going, it's sometimes those people that survive in that long run, they double down, all right? And it's marketing. People are going to pay a lot more attention to what they're spending. And I think increased visibility is there. I'm kind of with Tommy. I would love to see a way to make sure we keep it to where we have the accessibility to get out in front of those people. I think people are going to be looking now even harder at where they go. I know my family just, some members of my family just canceled a trip that they were going to go on just because of what the funds and the costs and the timing is. I would hate to see us risk something like that, and I like Tommy's idea of it being performance-based, but when it comes to operations, you have a head count and a staff, and you have to ensure them, you have this position, and I have it in my budget. I'd love to see us go down like that, but I hate to see a decrease in this at all. I just learned about it when it popped up on the board. But I do remember when we said it's going to be a year review when we go. I just hate to see, number one, see that affect staff, and number two, to penalize us for doing a good job.
Well, I would say this, I mean, we can record meetings, we can do that. Our marketing is based on numbers, so we have the numbers that I share with you when I do my presentation of the reach. But this is marketing. I'll say this. If marketing wasn't important, Coca-Cola wouldn't market. Everybody knows Coca-Cola, but they market because Pepsi markets. We don't know that someone isn't going to see our magazine in a doctor's office 2 years from now and come. That is how marketing works. But we can look at the areas where we know that we could look at performance-based. Certainly, there's an opportunity there through meeting bookings, event bookings. But aside from that, I don't know what to tell you.
I hate to see us slow up when we're doing such a good job, okay? But I realize there are times where if we don't prove it and go it forward, we have to cut back and trim, and the whole society is doing that. It's a recession, we're all bearing that sum. So it's kind of that inevitable counter-based scale that's going to get us on both sides.
Well, marketing tends to be the first place people cut, and every article you ever read, they say it's the last place you should. And this, as I shared with those organizations who all do a great job, who are receiving hotel tax dollars, if we are not marketing for visitors to come, they will not come to their locations because they won't know to come, but people in Abilene, Odessa, Midland, anywhere else will be telling them to come to see them. They will not see ours, much like the Colorado model I mentioned.
I guess the issue would be, is there flexibility in the budgeting that allows for marketing to maintain and other expenses to be cut? Because that's the other issue.
Not significant, no. Our marketing, I have majority of my marketing budget goes to advertising and public relations, majority of it. And then also when we do travel to go to those conferences, those trade shows, those items we have to have for those trade shows, all of that product has to be part of that whole picture. It would be limited. I mean, we can cut some trade shows, but that seems to defeats the purpose of what we're doing for hotel marketing dollars that are designated tax used for marketing to visitors.
What percent is marketing to your total budget?
I'm sorry?
What percent is marketing to your total budget?
Right now, it's a little over 50% when you include all of the marketing pieces that come with that.
So that would be inclusive of postage, marketing, advertising, publicity.
It's around, I think it's around 540, something like that. And I like to, again, maintain that higher than the other just because I think it's important. That's our job to be marketers.
What is the convention servicing and supplies?
That includes all of the things that you take to a trade show, the giveaway items, some of the giveaway items, but lanyards, name tags, all of the things that are required for those meetings that we provide perks to when visitors come and bring an event here.
Talk about what the trade shows have brought to San Angelo.
The trade shows, Jonna specifically goes to South by Southwest, which is one of those trade shows connect meetings. That is where we get the RFPs to bid on leads. And so she has to be there along with all of the other Texas cities we compete with in order to be able to say, hey, we're here in San Angelo, why don't you consider having a meeting? If we're not there, they don't see us. And so we pay to go there, and then we book those events based off of those RFPs that we receive.
I've had people ask why we changed the name from CVB to Destination Marketing Organization.
Because Convention and Visitors Bureau was a poorly designed name when they first started them in 1899. Our international association started, they are now Destinations International, but they were Destination Marketing. That's what they wanted people to understand. That is what we do in our jobs, is market the destination, whether that's in a convention, a visitor, whatever it is, it's still marketing of the destination. So that's why we went with the name change.
And so that's a trend across the country.
It's been going on a long time.
We just haven't done it before this past year. Other questions, comments? Yes, Karen.
Forgive me if this isn't a very smart question, but this is my first time at the table during these proceedings. So I'm curious, this organization gets what dollar amount in hot taxes compared to our own civic events?
It's about equal. If you
Is
see
it
those
about
numbers
equal?
up there, one's $1.8 million and the other is $965. So, and they carried over what, 48,000. So it's basically $1.012 million to $1.8 million, somewhere in that.
I'm just asking because our civic events group is generating revenue for the city, correct? So this is a little less easy for us to quantify, I think. Maybe that's what's happening. How do you work with these buildings that we own, that we're benefiting from?
We bring leads to them. When we get our leads, we work with them on booking those events in these in these buildings. We also, when they have bookings that they may have gotten somehow, we can provide them with the welcome bags and the other things that group might need so that we can meet them, so that we can encourage them to have future meetings and work through us so that we have that opportunity.
I know in the past it's been said that many of these organizations plan conventions 2-3 years out. So we would know for our 2022-2023 budget what organizations are looking at coming here for their conventions.
I don't have that in front of me. I didn't print a list, so I'm not in that day-to-day operation side of sales. So I'm not in those bookings. I do know that Jonna has sent out numerous contracts to answering RFPs. We have not heard back on a definitive from the planner, but both Jonna and Susanna send RFPs and bids requests to our hoteliers. We get that data back, we present that to the planner, and then the planner answers. What I will also say to you, after 2020, a lot of planners learned to live by Zoom. So some of that is because those planners were affected by this as well. They are doing both Zoom and virtual, and some of them are doing the hybrid model, which is a pretty common model right now. So all of us in our world are working on how we help with that, because that's going to include extra audio-visual when a group does come to our community. So all of those things affect everything that is happening. But again, not all of our business is based on events and meetings. It's also corporate. I've been working very closely with the economic development team on working with them on how we can help get meetings. We met with Air Motor. That now has turned into a school that Howard College is offering based on a meeting we had with them to bring a meeting here for a week. It has now turned into a new program. So we are working with economic development to help work with those corporate organizations, those manufacturers, to see how we can help impact bringing in even more people when they're here. So that's corporate travel as well. All of those things impact what we do in our destination marketing.
So I think in the past, it's always been said that the marketing dollars that you have to be spent outside the city, that you cannot spend the marketing dollars within the city.
Significant portion of them, yes.
And so talking about your marketing dollars, describe where the marketing dollars have gone this past year.
Texas Monthly, Texas Highways, Authentic Texas Magazine, Texas Events Calendar. We have gone to trade shows. We have gone to public relations shows with the Travel Texas team, which is the governor's office. They have us go there. We represent San Angelo aside all of our other competitors. We participate in a lot of activities like that. I can't name all of them, but we are trying to be present in a majority of the larger operations. So Travel Texas is the #1 travel website for Texas that is produced by the governor's office. TourTexas.com is right behind them. AGR Media does that program. They also do the publications for the Texas the main book for the governor's office. Sorry, it just left me. Texas State Travel Guide. We're there. We're in all of those publications. That will be a significant cut with this budget.
And I get that. So if you say what happened in 2019, 2020, those dollars weren't, well, 2020, those dollars would have been there, but in 2019, they weren't. So what's the change in that strategy? Because the dollars weren't there. You had 865,890 or something like that.
We had actual salespeople going out and selling our community, so the dollars went up because we were doing that. But that also affects our travel. A budget cut affects travel. How much can we go travel if we have a budget cut? Because the expense dollars of hotel stays, fuel, all of the things that go with that, it's not just a simple cut the ad. There's a lot more to our role than that. It's not just placing an ad in the newspaper, doing social media, SEO, SEM, search engine optimization, search engine marketing. We do that with Madden Media. They have helped move us from page 8 on a Google search to #2 after the city. Those are all things that we pay to have happen.
Are you pleased with the results from advertising in Texas Highways and Texas Monthly?
Yes, I am.
And so that result would be that. Tell us about that.
We know that, I was
Just
not
generally.
prepared for all of this.
But you know your business, so you can talk generally.
We know, 1 million people see those magazines because they have that kind of a distribution. And then whoever those magazines go to later, whatever that subscription is left on a table somewhere for other people to see it. So it's a continued return. We have now started adding QR codes to our advertising. Jasmine has put those in so we can track some of that. So that will be another way to look at potential tracking to see who's booking those booking room nights based on what they saw in an ad if they scanned it.
And do we have some of that information?
I don't now, right yet, no, because we just started that.
Yes.
I'm hung up on the performance.
Yeah.
Not your performance. That's not. But
the dollar investment
well,
not really.
Now, not
yes.
to justify. I don't like that word either.
Could I ask this question to maybe help?
Yeah.
How did the other organizations that receive hot tax showcase how they were able to track hotel rooms? I would like to know that. Maybe we can piggyback on what they do.
Well, I would assume day in and day out, you're working with those organizations in your marketing efforts. So, because their monies are so tiny, it really doesn't buy them much in terms of the marketing dollars that you have here. So they count on your ability to take these marketing dollars and promote their.
But their dollars are supposed to be used for that because of the state law. So that's why I'm asking that question. So how are they tracking their 50,000? Or, because then maybe I can tell that, because our advertising isn't focused on one entity, it's focused on a community.
The city.
It's a very different.
Well, Howard just
player.
left, and I think he could have answered that for you. So, because they do have a lot of tracking on what happens at the museum, but they have a facility, just like SAPAC has a facility. If you talk about the fort, if you talk about downtown, if you talk about, I don't know who else is up there, those, for example, downtown has multiple businesses, multiple everything. It's hard to track that. If you ask Eggemeyers how much of their business comes from outside of town, they'll tell you most of it. So, but they would have to take an inventory of every single business to come up with that specifically.
I think we would have to do the same, honestly. Because
just your dollars
we represent
are
an entire
significant.
city, and
Yes, you
people
do.
who see our ads may go to a store, they may go, we don't
That's
have
right.
any way to track that.
None of those organizations got the big jump in funding that you got in 2020. They've been maintained at these dollar amounts for a while. So
I understand that, but a tracking mechanism for all of them, if we had that, understood how they track them, we could perhaps track too, because I thought we all presented the same thing in these.
yes and no. I mean, obviously,
Okay.
again, I go back to dollars. They don't have a marketing budget that's being paid for by hot tax. They don't have, if you will, I mean, you can go through the different lines. They don't have all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're more, that's a narrower perspective. Yours is a much broader.
Sure.
And it, like all of those areas of hot tax funding, they pull from a wide range. Like I said, sales tax dollars in this city come from not only the citizens of this city, but a 17-county region, on top of people from cities we don't even know, countries we don't even know, come and support that sales tax column. And hopefully, with the exception of most of them who are in our regional area, spend some nights in hotels.
Majority of, just based on Google, analytics on Discover San Angelo, the top, I want to say top 9 cities who are on our website are not in that 17-county region. They are in Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, those larger cities. So those are the people looking at our website in the top 10. I think Abilene's the only other city. Thank you.
Yeah. So on hotel occupancy, this was a great report that has been done by Mike Berry and Michael Looney. It shows hotel occupancy up in the first quarter of 2022 to 2021, 56.4%, or a 4.1% increase in hotel occupancy in the first quarter. What was our increase, if you'll go back and refresh our memory, on the hotel occupancy increase in dollar amounts in 2021 and 2020?
And I would like to add something about last year. In August of 2021, the Courtyard was struck by lightning. It's our top hotel, if you will, because of meeting space. So we did not have full meeting space or full access to that hotel, which we use a lot for meetings, for 9 months. So for the first few months, I don't think it was open at all. And then, because we had to move some folks, then we had, I think, 60 of the 92 rooms. And then recently, they just completed all of those rooms. That was a significant impact in that number right there.
So if you take those rooms away from total room capacity, what was the hotel occupancy?
I would have to go back and look.
The issue would be, did it
Because
go up or did it stay?
I will say this, of the 2,800 hotel rooms we have, 800 of them are rooms that our meeting planners will use. 800.
Of the what number?
of the 2,800 hotel rooms in our community.
Because those 800 have some level of conference room availability?
Not necessarily.
Just quality of hotel?
So when one hotel like that is impacted, it makes a significant dent in what we do.
What was it? I need the hotel occupancy numbers, please.
The budget, ma'am?
No, actual from 2020. 2021, sorry, 2021.
20% increases, like we did with sales tax?
Yeah,
from year to
what
year?
was the hotel occupancy
Okay.
as a percent in 2021 and in 2020?
We pulled that back to 2018. 2018 saw an increase of 26.1%. 2019 saw an increase of 10.8%. 20 saw a decrease of 15.6%. And in 2021, we saw an almost 12% increase, which brought us almost back to 2019 numbers and actuals.
So they increased even though those rooms were out of
No, that was
commission, but
2021, not
2021.
It had
So
nothing to do with
2021,
19.
what were those numbers?
2021, we saw an increase of 11.69% over 2020. Of course, 2020 was a pretty negative year being COVID, so.
Okay, so further question of Tommy.
Here's my, I guess my preference. I would like to I'll say restore the funding. And I'm not sure based on different fiscal years, and so I don't know what that number is, but let's go, whatever the number would be to allow Diane to have that money, but then somehow figure out a mechanism to let us know what that is getting for us. And I don't know what that mechanism is. Is that something you would, I'll say, would be willing, or you think you might be able to do, Diane?
We can try. I mean, occupancy, can we take full credit for hotel occupancy? Certainly not. But no marketing is not going to get us hotel occupancy.
Yeah.
So
maybe we base it on results and not necessarily, but I guess maybe on dollar results. Again, I'm living in my head here, where the world I live in, it's all results oriented.
And I feel, and fighting for my staff here, that we have shown great results.
And if listening to you talk, I agree. So, Mayor, I would be willing over the next couple of weeks with Diane, maybe Tina, Kimberly, somebody to maybe brainstorm through this a little bit to see if we can't figure out something that would be acceptable to all concerned. Would that be acceptable?
If you're, are you saying, just to be clear, that what we want to do is have some defined mechanisms for evaluation?
Or evaluation of the performance, again, whether it be dollar, we'd have to come to an agreement on that, and we might come to the point where we agree to disagree, but attempt to do that, to be able to allow Diane to have it sounds to me like the case you've built, at least in my mind, it sounds to me like she uses her dollars pretty doggone wisely, and the results are there. But maybe we need just a way to quantify that. Would you allow me to work with Diane and Tina and maybe whatever appropriate staff to see if we can't come up with, or maybe would you be willing to?
I can help where we need to help. I have questions though, too.
I'd be happy to.
So now you've returned funds before, like COVID, you returned
Yes,
funds?
I returned my first year. I started in April, and I did not spend, I think it was over $100,000, because I didn't want to spend just to spend, because that's not what I do.
I think that's a key comment.
And in 2020, I came to this organization after I got off a plane in Canada in March and asked that if I could save $200,000 instead of spending it just to spend it, and carry it over for the following year because I knew that the pandemic was going to cause issues for us. Didn't know it was going to go into 2021, but I was following the trends that at our national level that was saying that to us. So I wanted to be more proactive than reactive on that. And so I was the person who came to you asking you if we could do that. So I take being a steward of the public funds very seriously.
So our priority here is the growth of the city. I mean, everything behind us all, whatever egos and everything we have, our priority here is the growth of the city or to decrease the decline that other people feel that we shouldn't. Okay, I think you've returned funds back to the city before.
Yes, sir.
And you are not a frivolous spender. I have worked with people that have budgets in private industry, hey, we have money sitting there, let's just spend it because it's there, because if we don't, we won't get it. You haven't shown that behavior, and we appreciate that. I mean, that's positive to me. I'm with Tommy. I think there's some benchmarks we need to do, but we need to make sure we hit those benchmarks to keep it going there. I see no reason the performance here to, we're looking at an 8% decline year over year in your budget versus if you take the numbers you said, it's like a 12% decline in there. I don't see anything that goes on there that doesn't mean we can't reverse this and look at some way to hit that. I mean, that's a hard decline for any of us to absorb it anywhere, and I don't want to see that decrease in our marketing. I mean, I have my mother and sister come back, and they have met you all over the state in different places, and that's a good thing. I'm not saying, I'm just saying I personally hear that you're out there. But then again, we need to look at, we manage these departments, and I hear Brendan Daniel say, it was a year-to-year contract, and here's what we want to look at, and we want to be frugal with what we have. We need to, think big and act small. And with that, if I can help Tommy or something done that way.
Well, I would say this, and I appreciate your comments. What I would say and what we are using with our economic development, I have a video out that I had it changed to include it all starts with a visit. You cannot grow this community if people don't know to come to visit it. And if you aren't telling them to come, they will not come. You will not bring workforce. You will not bring new business. So that is why we purposely added that at the end of our video so that we could have economic development be able to use that video in their marketing efforts as well.
I think that's the best statement ever. It all starts with a visit, and I think regardless of what we talk about, it all does start with a visit, and I think that phrase is something that needs to be pushed out there more and more. St. Angelo has to fight pretty hard right now to maintain who we are, and I say that relative to quality of life, because the statistics are the following. We are diminishing in importance if you look at the state as it relates to economic growth, as it relates to sales tax, as it relates to population, as it relates to the importance of the state. We are a quality of life city, as people say. The question mark is, how do our citizens feel about that? And what do they want from us as a quality of life? And so some of that goes back to our facilities and making sure that our facilities have the money they need to ensure the quality of life for our citizens, whether it's the river stage, which citizens in this city really enjoy, whether it's the Coliseum, where a lot of great things happen out at the Coliseum, whether it's Texas Bank Sports, whatever those issues are. We have to have a commitment to ensure that those facilities are the best they can be based off of the dollars we have available. And we have to have a commitment to your organization that says, this is the best we can do for funding to get what we need out of it. And I think when we made a comment that said this should be a one-year budget, we as a council were very delinquent in not reviewing that on a year-to-year basis. COVID certainly impacted it. The next year, where were we? We said, hey, 1 year. We went and let it go 3 years without review. And that's wrong on this council's perspective. We committed to 1 year. We didn't commit to a lifetime. And we need to be able to evaluate it not to be a threat to your organizations, because it's not a threat. It has to be because it is the dollar value is invested in a manner that everybody can see the payback on. And I think you do that with a lot of your marketing. I think going from a big focus on print to a focus on social media is probably a great savings if you look at 10 years ago in terms of how the dollars were spent. But I think we have to have performance measures, and I think we have to better understand what we, the council, want out of Diane's area. We applaud her and thank her for all the presentations that she makes. We need to do better than that. We're not. We need to be asking questions, understanding the areas of investment, and understanding what we need as a council in terms of, if she's our key marketing person, what do we expect out of that marketing organization? Not silence. And we've given silence. We need to be more supportive and more communicative. For $1 million, we deserve to be asking more questions and not just passing it through because that's what it is and because that will impact her if it goes down. We need to be involved. It's the single largest dollar amount we have up there. And we can't answer a lot of the questions. We need to be invested, and we need to be supportive. And so what we're going to do in the next few weeks is you guys are going to sit down and come up with some quantitative analysis and better understand the focus and to make sure it ties in with what we, the city council, wants it to be. But we can't be silent, guys.
No, and I mean, I'll sit there, I see what you're saying. I hated to be the one that, it's gone so well. I'd hate to be the one that stepped in and make it go downhill. Well, it did good until Tom got involved. Had that happen before, so anyway.
You know, we haven't had 3 years of continual, I mean, like we said, COVID impacted 1 year, we carried over. Come on, guys, we need to get involved. If we're going to give them $1 billion and we're not committed to it yet, we need to understand what we're doing here.
I understand what you're saying, Mayor, and like, for me, it's like, okay, we're approving the $1 million, and what are we getting in return? What is the profit that we give you this money? We want to know, what are you doing? What kind of stuff? And it doesn't. And for me, it doesn't cut it once a year because we forget. From if it could be every 4 months, an update. Review of what
she does quarterly reports, but she needs more direction from city council in terms of our expectations, because they tell us what they're going to do. We need to be more involved in the front end and understanding what she wants to invest in, and so we're knowledgeable. The recap is already done, and we need to know, are there going to be big events, big wonderful things happening? Because right now we're in July, almost July, so you assume there's nothing on the books right now for the next quarter.
Why would you assume that?
Well, I've asked, and so tell me if there is. I mean, we talked about the Wild West thing.
There are a number of events. The San Angelo Revolution Film Festival. We have a tattoo convention that is a brand new event that is being created. We have a Dia de los Muertos event. We have a significant number of events throughout the rest of the year. But again, events are not where we bring in the most in hotel tax dollars.
Agreed. That's my point. Yes. Yes.
We'll let Harry speak on this too, but Tommy and I will take a much more aggressive approach in sitting down and getting with the board and council members here and making sure we try to do at least something quarterly and be more involved, at least provide input to where it goes both ways.
Harry?
I certainly appreciate the approach that Tom and Tommy are going to take on this. I've had the opportunity to sit in on most of the meetings over the last 3 or 4 years because I kind of sit as the liaison between the city and destination marketing. And of course, at those particular meetings, we see all of the reports, the bookings that we're going to have, what the percentage of rooms are, what that ADR is. So every month during that meeting, I've got that advantage of seeing all of that information. And I suspect that if other people were able to see that on a more regular basis, then they'd want to understand where the dollars are going and how they're impacting the amount of people that are coming to San Angelo.
Well, and I think the events that Diane just talked about are really great events. They've been good. They're not new this year. They've been good and they've been successful. How much of it brings people in from the outside, I don't know. But the work and effort on those events have been terrific and people have thoroughly enjoyed them. I'm talking about things like Cowboy Jubilee. I'm talking about things like the air race. I'm not talking about the organizations who are bringing their event or having an event for their organization as a fundraising event. But you guys participate in that and you help in that, so you're part of the team that pulls that off. Okay, with that, thank you, Diane. I think lunch is here. We should take a break. Call this meeting back to order at 1:21 and proceed with the items for consideration. Guy, you're on.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor. This will be my first time to not start a meeting with trains, planes, and automobiles, so.
And stop, you got to. It's not an option.
I had to get it out there. Also, my work group dared me to just tell you this is the most boring budget you'll probably see, and so, whoop, there it is.
Talk through it.
So I had to get that out of the way for Nolan's entertainment out
Okay.
here. But flat budget, pretty much flat budget. We're following suit with the city in terms of revenue projections. So we're projecting an increase there of $82,319. For the 56,283 is for leases. We have more leases within the Business Resource Center and also anticipate additional interest. So our total revenue projected an increase of $129,128, so approximately $2.9 million revenue projected.
You know, the only positive to this inflation is the higher interest rates and the income produced from that. I'm not saying that's a good thing for most people, but as it relates to budgeting for the city, that's a positive.
So the slight increase in personnel to 3106 is due to longevity pay, loyalty pay rather. Slight increase in O&M for new leases on copy machines. And then that line capital is actually the amount of money that goes into future projects. So we anticipate starting off with $1,625,964 future projects. So be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Well, I think the first thing people would say relative to the financial statements that we're provided as part of this conversation is where you look at operations and maintenance assigned projects, where the fiscal year to date as of June would be $2,629,939, and then the proposed budget of $829,000. So there's a significant drop in that number, as there have been in previous years. So just talk through how that happens.
I got you.
Tina's got you.
Yeah, Tina's got it on the ballot side, yeah.
So that is because we do not budget for those incentive agreements in the original budget. Those are part of our carryover process, and so that number will increase once we do carryovers for the Development Corporation.
So just so everybody understands, that 829 is not a final number. That's not the number. If you look at the previous years and look at those numbers, you will see that that number will ultimately be impacted in that same kind of way, because we have carryover projects that are already funded out of past dollars and budgets that, if they're not complete yet, would then become a part of this year's budget number. So that would change.
I guess just as a reminder, we do collect a half-cent sales tax is what we get, and 78% of that, 72% of that rather goes to the ballot side, and then the other 28% comes over, and that's the money that we have to spend for economic and community development.
You want to update people in the projects that are going to be carryover, like the Skyline project? Where are we on that?
Skyline project, we're still in negotiations on that. We've had several meetings lately and are trying to finalize the final red line agreements on that. So we do hope to have shortly a agreed upon agreement, performance agreement with Skyline in regard to that. We did, in regard to the railport operations, and y'all were involved in that, is we did release their lien on the property so that they're able to sell property within the railport operation. And then the other item that we've worked on for a long time, it's not really a budgeted item, but just to remind you that during the year, we both I-14 and I-27 have been designated federally, so a great movement forward.
Just FYI, on the lobbying line, that is the dollars that we give to Ports to Plains in the I-14 corridor.
Right.
That pays to the lobbying that's gotten us where we're at today. So that's what that lobbying number is. It's those two specific interstate projects.
I would, for those that may not know this, Judge Steve Floyd is now the president of the I-14 Gulf States Highway Coalition, so that's great to have it back here in San Angelo, a significant portion of that in more input, more control.
He doesn't give that up even when he no longer is the judge. He continues in that
that's
position,
correct.
so that does not change.
That's correct.
Even
And
in
Mayor is
January.
also co-chair on the I-27.
And currently existing president for the I-27 Advisory Committee.
Right.
Okay, any other questions for Guy or Nolan at this point? It's, as you said, pretty simple. Go ahead, Tina.
I just want to point out that we're currently budgeting sales tax revenue at 5% decrease from this year's expected actuals. We'll, of course, update that when we meet with City Council for the general fund budget workshop. Those numbers will be reflected in this budget, you know, consistent with what the city decides to do. But with that, I don't have anything else, and we can move on to the ballot side of the Development Corporation.
So, in other words, those numbers could change relative to revenue, sales tax.
We are hoping to have one more month for August of sales tax revenue under our belts before we meet for general fund workshops so that we could update and reflect those numbers there. So on the ballot side, again, same thing, same projection.
Describe what the ballot side means.
Okay, so like Guy referenced earlier, 72% of the Type B sales tax revenue goes for long-term water supply type projects. The other 28% going for economic development projects. So the ballot side we refer to is the 72% that's reserved for water supply type projects. So the same thing with sales tax revenue there. Again, 5% below what we're projecting. And then, of course, a slight decrease in O&M, and the capital just represents unassigned projects.
Yes.
If I might, Tina, at some future council meeting, would you be willing to bring to us, or maybe COSA DC, those ballot items that are still out there that are pending? I know Fort Concho, for exactly, is one of them, but sometimes because it's been such a long period of time, we kind of forget what those are.
We did just approve one of the big ones that's left, and that is the park on 29th Street that we just approved, and that's one of the big dollar ticket items that was part of that ballot.
We got $7.5 million there. There's some significant projects that are still out there, evidently.
As far as the specifically mentioned ballot items, and that's what you're referring to, they've all been funded at this point. As far as what the Development Corporation, I wouldn't say they're completely funded, but as far as what the Development Corporation was obligated to fund, they've been funded, and those projects are now tracked in our Fund 502 under the city side.
As separate line items. The last big one was the park.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any questions, further questions or comments? With none, we'll move forward to the airport fund. Planes, trains, planes is coming up now. Don't bring up escalators. You're on.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeremy Valgartson representing Eurofine Airport today. I'd like Guy have a balanced budget and a pretty simple budget. As you can see, my revenues have gone up, especially my lease revenues. That was from the Border Patrol lease that we signed. I've got several irons in the fire now, and hopefully we'll have some more lease revenue coming. Not part of this budget year, but possibly in this fiscal year. So things are looking really good at the airport.
When you mean this fiscal year, you mean before October 1?
Possibly.
Okay.
Yep. Depends on how fast the government can move, but
Oh,
it's possible.
probably won't see it then.
Rental car revenues are also up. We've had good conversations with them. They've been more successful. It's still a hard time getting additional cars, but we are talking
We
to some.
replaced the one rental company that closed their doors?
Not yet.
Was it Hertz?
It was Hertz. Hertz Dollar Thrifty, yep.
So the others have brought in more cars?
Yep. The
to
others
make
have
up
brought
for
in.
one being gone?
They have. If you go out there, it looks like a used car lot over by the baseball fields because they're bringing in so many vehicles. And they're still selling out almost every day. So rental car concessions are up.
If rental cars concessions are up, I'm assuming so are hotel revenues. Because most of them who rent a car are also staying. Yes?
Jeremy, since Hertz left, is there, in your negotiations, is there a rental car facility that we can actually rent a car in Dallas and come here on a one-way?
Say that again?
So if I'm in Dallas and I have to drive in and the flight gets canceled, I went through this personally 6 months ago. There's no company here where I can rent a car in Dallas and drive it one way.
I think
With a fee, you can. You just pay a big fee.
No, I mean, there wasn't any of them. Me and another person out there, I mean, there was no Hertz, nobody that would do a one-way. Is there any more? And I have heard about that happening several times. People are there and can't get home that would have got a rental car, but none of them will rent a one-way to Angelo.
I know Enterprise will, and Enterprise actually has 4 or 5 stalls at the terminal that they rent. You drop the car off, and then they'll pick the car up and take it downtown. They do offer one way. The problem is they just don't have availability.
And that might have been that issue, but I mean, I've heard that from several people say, I get there, they cancel the last flight, I have to be here the next day. I can't get a rental car.
I think what
I'll
we
go one
need
way.
is an STR, short-term
Yes.
rental that you can, if you're going on vacation, you
Yes.
don't need your car, you can put it out there as a short-term rental.
Absolutely. Do it in Dallas, it'd be
Yeah.
great.
You're dismissed, Mayor.
Sorry.
All right, sorry about the sidebar, Jeremy.
Okay, keep on going.
Okay, moving on, just my landing fees are down, and that's mostly because of the charters. The charters really haven't picked back up since the coronavirus.
Are they communicating to you when they might start back up?
They don't. Actually, TSA gets the information before I even get it. We have another charter going out next month, but that'll make 2 for the entire year, calendar year. So charter sales are way down right now.
You're not on that one, are you, Lucy? No. Going to Las Vegas.
I'm not. I've already done my trip.
Okay.
American Airlines is also cutting their flights, so they're going down to 3, sometimes 2 flights, but they're bringing in bigger aircraft, so we're not losing any capacity. We're still going to have the same amount of seats. We're actually going to gain seats on a day-to-day basis.
Question mark is the timing of the departures and arrivals, because when you reduce the number of flights, it's not as always so convenient based off of when you need to leave and when you need to get somewhere.
This is their solution to the pilot shortage. The 175, it's a 2-man crew. They're still going to have the morning flight, so we'll have the early morning flight. Sometime in the afternoon, we don't know the schedule yet, and then the late night flight will come back in. So we'll always have that one overnight flight to get out in the morning. But they are cutting at least 1 flight, sometimes 2 flights a day on the weekends when it's not as busy. But that doesn't mean we're losing enplanements. Enplanements are still up. So PFCs are doing good. We're just going to lose a little bit in landing fees.
Okay.
Other than that, it's pretty balanced budget. The badges are staying consistent. Seem to be happy and healthy out there.
So why don't you share with council the South Taxiway extension that you've been working to get the funding for and opening it up for further hangar development?
Right. So the South Taxi Lane, that is a federally funded project through the AIG grants. It's the Airport Improvement Grants as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law that Biden signed. We're going to get about $5.5 million over a 5-year period. What the FAA is doing is they're going to tack that money onto our yearly entitlement money. So that's going to delay our project, and I just learned this the other day, actually. We're not going to get the South Taxi Lane built until the runway 927 conversion happens. We're going to bid them out together to get some, hopefully, better pricing. The FAA is really, really concerned, especially in West Texas, with inflation. It costs so much money to get a contractor here that's able to do that scope. And so they want to try and maximize our dollars and do that together. So we're looking, Mayor, probably midsummer of 23 for the South Taxi Lane completion.
That's when we're going to shut down the other taxi lane? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's when we'll convert runway 927 to taxiway hotel.
Right. Other questions for Jeremy? Okay. Thank you for waiting all day long.
Thank you.
That was tough.
Allison, did you find out what the price of that equipment is outside?
No, I didn't go look. Well, we want one. All right, good afternoon. Also, like Jeremy, presenting a balanced budget. Starting with revenue, we are projecting sales at a $1.2 million increase. This is in line with FY21 actuals, which was actually less than FY20 actuals. FY20, we were at $31.47 million, so we're budgeting flat with FY21 actuals. We are seeing similar water demands as FY21, and so that's why we feel that we're tracking on a similar basis for water sales. The remaining other increase of $432,000, some of that is due to lake leases. So out at Lake Nasworthy, where homeowners are still leasing their lake lot, there was that plan to move those those percentage increases in their lake leases going up. So there is about $25,000 associated with that. Then we also receive money from other divisions such as stormwater and trash because the water fund does all the billing services. And so for those billing and customer service functions, there is an increase in those. And then the others are from transfers in. One of them is from interest income from the Lake Nasworthy Trust Fund, so that's Fund 640. There's about $41,000 of an increase there. And then also an increase in what we transfer from the sewer fund to fund utility maintenance, because utility maintenance covers both water and wastewater in our functions, but is paid solely out of the water fund. So that's it for revenue, if y'all have particular questions about that.
One other component, Mayor, I would mention that you mentioned earlier is interest income. We're projecting that to increase to the water fund with over $250,000.
For expenses, personnel is up $365,000. O&M is up to $660,000, and then we are increasing our capital line to a balanced budget, and the capital line is dedicated almost primarily right at this moment to keep up with the street program, so the College Hills, Bell Street, those type of projects. It would be to do the water line replacements for that project, or for those projects.
Explain the personnel line, because most of the personnel's lines are barely up, only for longevity pay. So you want to talk about your personnel increases?
Yes, ma'am. One of those is a reorganization of the Water Utilities Fund. I was approved to have a second assistant director for the water utilities. This is primarily due to the workload and the regulation and reporting requirements that we see through all the entities that we have to report to. We also had reorganization as far as our lowest pay grade was a grade 11, and then we did, I guess, citywide, that was moved up to a pay grade 12. So some of my lowest level the lowest level employees were bumped up one pay grade. And so there was about $35,000 associated with that. It's $105,000 for the second assistant director that I was discussing. $16,800 in loyalty pay. And also with the water fund and wastewater fund, as our employees get licenses and go to classes, they do get license pay for those licenses that they hold for us. And so there is an increase in that line of $38,000. Ultimately, with all of those, I guess, salary increases and incentive pay increases, we had a net increase of $101,000 to benefits. And so that is the largest portion of that personnel line increase.
What part of it is that those, what do you call them, things that we added, those people that we added for?
CSIs?
CSIs.
So those were reflected in last year's budget
So
because
the
they were approved
total.
through the budget process. So
No, they were approved, I just didn't think we had hired them yet, so I'd wondered what part of this, because I don't think you had them all on board.
we did not
for the
have
full-
them, correct.
Yeah.
We did not have them hired at that point. But when we go into a budget, we budget for all vacant positions as well as filled positions. So there were dollars allocated in last year's budget for those, even though we had not hired them at that point. But once we started marketing and advertising for those, we had the dollars already in the fund to pay those employees.
Okay. And let's see, questions from council. This might, I don't think it's on this one, so I might be asking it ahead of time, which is fine. But on one of the presentations that you made earlier this year, I think in May, it was about drilling the additional wells at Hickory Aquifer, et cetera. And I think in looking at those documents, it showed that we would be in the process of starting that work in May of this year. So I think that meeting was in March maybe. So where are we on the Hickory Aquifer additional wells, well expansion project?
They have actually drilled down to the full depth of the first well. That's a little over 3,000 feet deep. They're doing the top reams, which is basically it's an upside down wedding cake as you drill down into the Hickory. But the main hole to the Hickory formation for the first well has been complete. There's been lots of grubbing and clearing of right-of-way. There are new roads already built to about 2 of the well sites. I think 3 of the 5 well site pads are ready for rigs to move in. The driller is a few days behind schedule, but they are mobilizing.
Because of rain?
I wish.
No.
I truly do. No. Just because of the hard conditions that they're drilling in. And so it was their intention to drill all 5 with 1 rig. They are mobilizing in a second rig right now to assist and get them back on track. And then that's the drilling contractor, PLW, which is the contractor for both the in-town work and the remaining work out there. Clearing has been done at the water treatment plant. They're starting to receive materials, and so their construction trailers are set up. It's becoming almost a full-fledged construction site at the water plant as well as the ranch itself.
You're pleased so far with the progress?
Yes. We're only a couple months into the construction project, but yes, I've been very pleased. We have monthly progress meetings, trying to visit the well site more often, but everything is clean and it's going well.
This might have been the wrong place to ask it,
Yeah.
but
No,
I had my notes to ask for a follow-up on that, so continue. So go ahead to your water reclamation fund, because I don't think anybody had any questions on.
This too is a balanced budget. Unlike water fund, wastewater fees, we are not seeing much of an increase, and it is. We also need to know that with wastewater, two things. There are large portions of San Angelo that we don't serve with wastewater capacity.
Is that because they have septic?
Yes, that is because they have septic, and just because the extents of our sewer system don't reach to some of those subdivisions. And then we're also annexing and bringing in some subdivisions that, like the one off Ratliff Road, that will be served by septic facilities. The other portion is that the usage or how we bill for sewers off a winter quarter average. And so we do not bill peak usage in the summer because most of that is going to irrigation. So we bill off the winter quarter average. And so we're budgeting that flat with the revenues that we were, or that we budgeted for last year. The other line is primarily due to interest income, $164,000 of that.
Okay, questions from council on this fund? On what it brings up to me, obviously, is the Lake Nasworthy sewer system project that we're working on. So update us on where we're at, because at one of the past meetings, we said that by November, all of that work would be done and we might have the opportunity to start working.
Yes, the design work is still on track to be complete by November so that we can start the advertising and procurement process to get a contractor on board for the construction of that project. But yes, we're still on the November, schedule for those design drawings to be complete.
That, I think, is one of the most important things we all are waiting for and anticipating, because the amount of growth and development it's holding up. So you've heard me say it before, but
and I've talked to several Yes, I've talked to several developers that are chomping at the bit for that project too. So we're trying to push it through as fast as we can.
Okay. Again, questions, comments from anybody? Moving on.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Talk real quickly about the Stormwater Fund. Budgeted flat again this year for that. Our revenues are going to equal expenses overall. For this fund, our revenues have not increased substantially since the inception of the billing on that in this particular fund. In 2010, we set the fees, and those fees have not increased, so therefore we have a nominal increase only through the increase in the number of bills that we send out. So we historically have billed flat for the revenue on the Stormwater Fund. The $26,000 that you see there in other is all interest income.
You know, how much on all these funds that we're talking about right now, how much is the total interest income that we will see this year? I mean, I remember maybe it was last year when you talked about the large dollar amount that was impacting our funds, our revenue, because of low interest rates. So this year we have higher interest rates in total.
I haven't calculated that in an aggregate amount citywide, but we could definitely share that at the general
At some point,
fund.
let's just talk about it, because that.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the next workshop, we'll have that ready. Okay.
And similarly, on the expense side, our expense budget is fairly the same as it has been over the years past. A slight increase in personnel due to that same increase in the lowest pay grade, up from a grade 11 to a grade 12. And then our O&M bumped up just a little bit because we moved a little bit of what we used to budget in capital projects up into our O&M to try to take care of some small in-house type projects. So that's why you see that movement of those two dollar amounts there in O&M and in capital.
I was going to say, Patrick, I think part of that is related to fuel and vehicle maintenance costs as well.
That is correct.
We're seeing that citywide too, of course.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, questions for Patrick? With none being asked, thank you.
I've got the solid waste fund
Yes.
as well, so we'll roll right into that. Similarly, the solid waste fund is pretty uneventful on the revenue side. The $93,000 that you see an increase there is obviously interest revenue, and then the user fees is that contracted increase between the landfill and the collection services that we see that was contracted whenever we renewed the collections and the landfill contracts in 2014. On the expenditure side, pretty basic there. On the O&M, we moved some O&M money from our professional services as we looked at the permitting process. We've got the bulk of that encumbered already, so moved some of that line out of last year's budget and reflected in this coming year's budget, and just dropped that down into capital, into the contingency line for that particular section. One of the things that is new in this particular budget is the addition of the KSAB fund into here. So
Yes.
the KSAB was a standalone
Keep San
fund.
Angelo beautiful fund.
Keep San Angelo beautiful, that is correct. The KSAB, this current year, we negotiated and we pulled them underneath the umbrella of the solid waste fund because they do provide a service that aligns with the goal and the objective of the solid waste department. In doing that, we also incorporated the water conservation manager into that same position. So there's some alignment there as well from a conservation and just an economic or ecological standpoint. So you'll see there's $110,000 there that we have budgeted that wasn't budgeted before, strictly to cover those operating expenses for that particular fund.
It makes sense, and those people should be in this fund.
I would clarify that they are still in a separate fund because they're a separate legal entity. However, organizationally, they will now fall under Public Works.
Questions? Seeing none, moving on.
Thank you.
Mayor, Kimberly pulled the number for interest, the increase to interest income this year that we're projecting and budgeting is over $1.1 million. Citywide.
Is that it?
It's huge.
Okay. Then do I, as a matter of the process, I need we originally planned for the general fund workshop to be on the 9th of August. Tom Thompson cannot be here for that, so specifically.
A random council person couldn't be here.
There's somebody sitting up here. So we've moved that to the 11th, which is just fine because it gives us more time actually to get some information from sales tax trends. So thank you for not being available because you've helped us out.
Is that on purpose?
There you go. In August. It was originally on the
August
9th
I'll
and
get
now
one of those
moved to
2
the
American
11th.
Airlines
So from a
flights back
Tuesday
in.
to a Thursday.
Well,
Same time,
whatever
same
little
place.
Tom wants, a little Tom gets.
Baby Tom, hashtag Baby Tom.
And with that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor, stand up and go.